we're looking at the Keyframe Orchestrator. Alright, this is probably the most amazing stuff I've ever built. I think I built some interesting stuff. This is the expressions notepad. This is an expressions manager. This is the expressions encryptor. All of these 20 odd scripts in Mac make a great. This is amazing. This allows you to animate hundreds, thousands of layers and keyframes. Of course, depending on your machine's capability, right? Allows you to animate hundreds of thousands of layers and keyframes without touching a single keyframe. If you've looked at a lot of, or if you've looked at any scripts or add-ons for After Effects, a lot of them those that deal with keyframes, you have to select your keyframe, and that's very, very debilitating because there's no way you're going to select 2 keyframes from each of say 200 layers, right? It's just insane. So the motivation to design this script is to allow us, After Effects users, to animate hundreds of layers and many keyframes on a layer without selecting the keyframes. You only need to select the layer. So I'm going to select these layers, press P and Shift S, but there's no scale that's animating. Alright, so what we have here is a set of layers, and then they have 6 keyframes each. Alright, so we're set up in this way. I suggest you read all the help information as and when you need them. So at the top, these are keyframe easing and includes linear. And the beauty of this is you don't have to select the keyframes. Just select the layer. The easing has its own settings, and they're built in here. Okay, my favorite is this one. Right, Shift and click. Try the other ones, and you can change these values also. Alright, I find that Shift click with these settings. Yeah, remember I do ease out first before ease in, right? Just keep that in mind because a lot of other scripts do ease in and then ease out. For me, it's actually more intuitive to ease out before you ease in. So you can change this. And by default, it affects your transform properties. If you remember your shortcut keys for this, for Mac, MAG, shift click on an empty checkbox will select all checkboxes in that group. If you shift click on already checked checkbox, you will uncheck all the checkboxes. Alright, so that works here. And if you alt shift, let's say if I alt shift now on position, it will solo the position selection. Alright, and even if I had all 3 selected as they are now, position, opacity, and scale, if I hold on Alt Shift or Option Shift and click on position, it will solo that. Okay, so these are really useful shortcuts to help you, and if you've looked at the other tutorials, you would have known this. So anyways, we've got this guy moving up, alright, spreading sideways and stuff. So besides selecting your properties, you can also select custom properties. These are properties in your timeline. Alright, you just select them, click on get property details. They can be effects, they can be, maybe let's add whoops. some reason it, what's this? Let's delete that. I'm trying to apply a drop shadow. Oh, my Camtasia, my screen recorder is disturbing the shortcut key. Anyways, let's go to perspective, drop shadow. Alright, so I can select these two guys. Let's do 4, and then click on, I'm gonna marquee select, remove all those, and then get properties. Oops, I need to come back here. Yep, so they're there. And sometimes you only want to affect these guys here, your custom properties. So you just select the one that you want. Yeah, I'm clicking, and then control click to select non-contiguous selections, and you can shift, hold, click one, hold shift, click the other one to select all. You can also marquee select. You can also click anywhere here to deselect. Yeah, whoops, no, you got to go to an empty area. Alright, so if you click here, now it works strangely. So to deselect, click somewhere away from the text area. You can see it becomes unselected. So you can affect all the layers. Now if I select all the layers, maybe let's do that quickly. Let's zoom in a little bit. We're gonna set, let's set distance. Now this property does not have a keyframe. So to use the Keyframe Orchestrator, you first need to set your indices. But actually before that, you need to select your property. In this case, we only want to affect this guy, so we've done that. Secondly, you decide what you want to do. Do you want to change a value, an attribute? And the attribute could be, maybe you want to set a new keyframe, or you want to affect a static value or an existing keyframe, or even create new keyframes. Alright, that's what you use attributes for. And then you can move, copy paste, time stretch, stagger them, delete, or time reverse. So we're going to look at all of them. Now we'll look at how to change a static property. For that, you type 0, right? Because there's no keyframe, so you type 0. Now, what's the distance now? Well, I can see it's 5, so I'm going to go to value, type 25. There's no keyframe, so you leave this as blank, and no keyframe, you don't need the speed and influence. Then I'm going to click start processing. So you can see that. As you can see, this thing is insanely powerful. It's a bit like our properties panel. Alright? It's a bit like that. But I think this is a lot more powerful because just by selecting the layers and the property, I can affect the property. There are no expressions here, yeah? There are no expressions on the layers. So again, one of the principles for designing this script is, okay, you don't have to select your keyframes. Secondly, don't need expressions so that it'll perform really, really quickly. Alright? But you can also apply expressions if you want. Later we'll look at an example. So back here, I've shown you very quickly how to change values. And how I've done it, although it's for a custom property, it applies for the transform properties also. Alrighty? So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to switch off all the expressions, sorry, the effects, and then press P. So we look at the keyframes. So we're going to go backwards. I'm going to do a time reverse. Now all these question mark are your help icons. Click on them and they will open a your help. So this is about keyframe indices, but it's specific to time reverse. Some of them should be a bit different, I think, if I recall correctly. Um, so what's beautiful about this is I've created what's called special commands. You can think of them as expression methods also. All right. So there are unique ways, special ways for you to select um, and to define a keyframe indices. Keyframe, each keyframe has a number. You can actually see them. If you come up here, click on the hamburger icon there, and you can see they'll be numbered. All right. So every composition tab in the timeline has that option. All right. So you can see they're numbered. So what I want to do now is I want to time reverse, and there are lots of unique commands. You use a single number to specify um, a single keyframe index. You use a dash to define a range. All right. So again, all the nice help information is up here or in here, and then there are special commands. Last is a special command. It means the last keyframe because this is unique and very useful. Because sometimes you have 8 keyframes, sometimes 7, or some properties. If you're animating position and scale, position may have 8 keyframes, but scale only has 6, and you want to define both. At the same time, you use last, and there's also last minus n. So last minus 1 will be the second last keyframe. Last minus 2 will be the keyframe before the second last keyframe. All right, and then we use n greater. In other words, we use inequality. So you can use greater than, less than, and equal to, or greater than, equal to also. All right, and here it's saying use 0 if it's a non-animating or static property. So we'll look at a few of these here. Oh, I forgot this one, which we'll use shortly. The asterisk is a wildcard. That means it selects every keyframe. All right. So by selecting, defining which keyframe you want to affect, or if there's no keyframe, 0 for static value, that's how you can affect keyframes. All right. So here are some examples. Now let's get going. So what I want to do is I want to do a time reverse. Like I said, we're going to go backwards. So remove that first. So spacebar preview. All right. So it's coming upwards. What's happening is it starts off below. All right. Starts off below. It moves up. And slides into the middle, and then spreads out again. And the way it spreads out, it uses the ACDC, the line clone, distribute, clone script, which I didn't mention earlier, but it creates keyframes. So you already have one keyframe, and you align, distribute, at a new point in time, you will get a new keyframe. So that's how these were done. All right, so I want to time reverse. I'm going to count the keyframes. So I just type 1-6. So it's going to select keyframes 1 to 6. Oh, I didn't select the property. Beautiful. So come back here. And if you make a mistake, or if you thought you had set something up, but when you look here, nothing happens. That means you've either typed something wrongly here or did not make the correct selection. All right, so it's good that I made that mistake. So I'm gonna, now I've ensured I've selected the property I want to time reverse, and I ensured I've typed in the correct indices. Let's go. So this status is exceptionally important. And just like that, it took less than a second, well, maybe 1 second, to time reverse 72 keyframes across 12 layers. So we do a preview now. As you can see, it doesn't start on the bottom. And then now we'll slide down. See that? So it's insanely fast, and I think I can make it faster, which is a bit scary also. So anyway, so that's one way. I could also use a wildcard. If you have a lot of keyframes, wildcard will take a little bit longer to process than typing out the actual numbers or range. All right, but wildcard is good because, like I said, sometimes you're also trying to time reverse other properties, and other properties do not have the same number of keyframes. All right, so this is useful. So done. Now it's going to start from the bottom. All right. Next, we're going to look at delete, and I'm actually going to delete all. Maybe let's keep the first two. All right. So you want to define a range using inequality. All right. You must type the small letter n greater than 2. So what I'm telling the script is to say keyframes greater than 2, that means 3 right up to the n, delete. Done. And you can see it's deleted 48 keyframes across 12 layers. Alright, so now it just comes up. Amazing, right? Alright, next thing I want you to notice, actually what's next? Stagger. Okay, we'll keep stagger for last actually. Let's do a time stretch. Right, let's look, this is what stagger looks like. You can see it's insanely powerful. So super powerful. So we'll look at that a bit later. Let's do time stretch, and we're going to time stretch the second keyframe. If you look here, there's a bit of stagger that's been applied. So some keyframes finish earlier than others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide, hey, is it too slow, too fast? A bit too fast. So let's say we want a time stretch by, I don't know, 20%. So we just type 1, 2. 1-2 should also work, yeah? All right. The difference is that 1, 2 and 1-2, 1, 2 is the script will definitely look at each keyframe index and look for 2 values. Depending on what you want to do. If you put 1-2, sometimes it only looks for a single value. All right, and you can also do this, a spread operator, 1, and ellipses or 3 dots, followed by a number. So it could be 5, it could be 2. What's going to happen is, actually I should show you this because it can be confusing without examples. But this is a spread operator. This is another way of telling the script you want to select keyframes 1 up to 5, but any movement in time will be based on the number 1 or whichever number could be 2 here. So this becomes very important when you're moving and time stretching a subset, all right, instead of all the keyframes. So we'll save this for later for a bit more advanced. Now I'm just gonna keep it simple. I'm just gonna say time stretch all the keyframes, right? All the keyframes, and then let's do 75%. Now there are 2 ways to time stretch. You use a percentage or frame count. Okay, so both options are available. So make sure you put the percentage if you want it to be percentage, because otherwise the script will think it's number of frames. So let's try this. And over on the status, it says, okay, you time stretch 24 keyframes. I'm gonna undo. Alright, so this is where we're at, 18 frames. And then now we time stretch. So now it's 75% of its original duration. So we're at 13 frames now. See how that works? Alright. I'm gonna skip copy and paste and go to move. Okay, let's assume I want the second keyframe for each layer to be at the 1 second mark. So this is where move comes in, right? I want to move the second keyframe. I can move it based on a time offset. And time offset takes in two types of values. Okay, frame count or time count or time code count. So time code count, you put semicolon or colon, both are accepted. Alright. If it just sees a number without a colon or semicolon, then it knows you want to do frames. Alright. Now for time, keyframe time, you can specify a time in the same way. Alright, and the frame number. So they both seem to work the same, but one is for time offset, one is for the actual time. Right? So one is relative time, which is time offset, and one is absolute time, which is keyframe times. There's also a very, very important concept, which is property. So, as in this case here, let's assume I've already done this, and I want to create keyframes for opacity, but it's going to be a problem because each layer, its position, its second keyframe for position is different from the others, right? So this is where property K comes in, and we'll look at that shortly. And then we've got some nice shortcut keys, right? Or special commands or expression methods. One is CTI. You know what? I'm not sure if the small letters. I normally type it capital. CTI, current time indicator. If it's there, and you type CTI here in the keyframe times, that means all layers, the second keyframe will be moved to the CTI. So read up on that. We'll do a few examples, alright? So my CTI is at 1 second mark. I could have typed 1 second here, but I can also type CTI. Alright, that also works. Here, I'm gonna undo. And I'm going to try 1 second mark, and this also works. Beautiful, right? Now, assume I want to move, let's see this. Okay, it comes up, and let's see at the 3 second mark, I want it to come down. So it's going to animate up, stay there for a few seconds, and then animate down. Alright, so for that, what we're going to do is this, copy paste. Okay, so we're going to paste second keyframe at CTI, and then first keyframe at maybe CTI plus, I don't know, 1 second. Okay, so we're going to copy paste. What are we going to do? We're going to copy, you can type 1 or 2 first. I'm typing 2 and then 1 because logically that's what we're doing. Alright. For me, my brain works this way because I'm a bit like time reversing also, eh? But copy paste works better because that's actually what I'm doing. So keyframe 2 is going to be at CTI, comma. Alright, because there are 2 keyframes that I specified here, so I need a comma. Now I'm going to specify the keyframe time for keyframe 1. So I'm going to put CTI plus 1 second. And check this out. Boom. Almost instantaneous. Let's see. It's going to hold there. Boom, down. Beautiful, right? Um, so we've done this, we've done that, we've done this, we've done this. Oh, we haven't done stagger obviously because that we want it to be last. Now we're gonna do attributes. We're gonna add scale. So I'm gonna hold Alt Shift, click on scale. So that will solo scale. And we need keyframes. So I'm gonna type keyframe indices 1 and 2. I'm gonna click on attributes. Right now it's asking me for the time. So instead of typing in the time for the first and second keyframes for position, because I'm assuming that we want the scale to animate from the first keyframe for position up to the second keyframe for position. Alright? So that means scale and position will animate at the same times. Now, this is where the position K example comes in. Yeah, it should be here. Unfortunately, it's not here. You saw it earlier. Was it here? Yeah, under property K. Right? K is just a variable, yeah? Okay. So for keyframe times, it's here. It's under keyframe settings. Keyframe times, sorry. Yeah, keyframe times. Yeah. So unfortunately, it's not here. But hopefully, it will be fine. So what property? Well, position. Alright. So in terms of time, where does the first keyframe for scale appear? I'm going to say, I just said, yeah, I just typed in, make the first keyframe for scale at the same point in time as position, the first keyframe for position. And what about the second keyframe? Well, let's make it at the same time as the second keyframe for position. Make sense? Right? You just type the name of the property, and there's also unique commands for these guys. I may have to update because I think this version of the help text doesn't have it. Damn it. Yeah, because to reference a custom properties keyframe, you need to also reference the index of the custom property, right? So you need to reference the custom properties index in this list, and also which keyframe. For these guys, you don't need to reference a number or an index. It's already got the name there. So I'll have to update that anyways. So now we type in the values for the first keyframe. So I'm going to say 0. I'm going to select the layer and press Shift S. I want to see. Okay, so they all end about 16. Some are 14. So they're all differentiated. Right, this one's a big problem. So I can't do differentiated scale values here. Alright, and scale has to be an array. So add the first keyframe will be 0. Second keyframe value, let's do 16 for all of them. Alright, 16 for all of them. What about speed? Well, I like 0 for speed and 90 for influence. And for both. This will be identical to this. Alright? So let's see. Okay. So there, it's done that. And you will see now the values start at 0. And at second keyframe, they're at the 16. percent scale. So I can go back to stagger, and then now, not stagger, sorry, what was it? Copy paste, right? So I'm going to do the same thing we did earlier for position, but now for scale. So what's nice also is that the script retains your last settings for each of the modes. So I come back to copy paste, it shows me the previous settings. Oh shit, when I undo, you know what? Because my CDI is at the wrong time. Just now when I used it for position, my CDI was here at the 3-second mark. So that's one thing to be mindful of when you're using relative values. Let's preview. I messed up, right? You know why I messed up? This should be 2, 1. So keyframe 2 first, and then keyframe 1. So keyframe 2's value will be copy and pasted here, so that between this keyframe and the to be created keyframe 3 will be consistent, right? No change. There you go. All right. So we've done copy paste, we've done attributes, and we've done 2 versions of attributes, right? One was for changing static values, and the other was for changing the not changing but creating properties for scale. Now we can actually go up to attributes, the scale. Now we're going to change the value of the second keyframe. Because you remember the original version, right? For the original version, with these layers in the middle, they were a bit smaller. In fact, these two were a lot smaller. So I've selected them, right? So whatever I do here will only affect these 2 layers. And what I want to do is there are keyframes 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2-3. I'm going to set this to 12. Right? As you can see here, they've changed. Notice I didn't do a 2, 3, because if I did 2, 3, that means the script is expecting 2 input values. Now that I put 2-3, the script is only expecting 1 value, because the script treats this range as a single input. All right, so the dashes are super important. You can use them in different ways. Now let's select this and this, and instead of 12, let's do 14. Okay, now let's preview. Okay, now you're going to use this a lot with the layer sorter also. Sometimes you want to sort layers based on, let's say, scale. So you can come here and do scale and sort in place. So all the properties with the higher value will be at the top. And why is that? So that it's easier to select them in the timeline. So where your timeline indicator is important, yeah? Because that's where the scale calculation will be calculated. If I put here, remember, use the value at CTI. Over here now at CTI, all the values are 0. So sorting will do nothing. They all have the same values. So sort somewhere about here will do also. Alright, so click, and remember it puts the smaller layers first. So if you want the bigger layers, you just invert. So now, when we come here, whoops. So I'm going to select the extreme edges, this guy and this guy, and then I'm going to come back here. Now you could say, yeah, you know, not too many layers. I can actually do it manually here. Well, but we're practicing so that when you work with 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, I've gone as high as I think 3,200 layers, and with many thousands of keyframes just for brute testing, yeah, or stress testing. It works, but took quite a while, as you would expect. We're talking about 10, 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, so this is what we have now. Now I'm going to not skip, but I'm going to show you a couple of other examples. I use random offset. Random offset is a special command. Again, special commands are a bit like expression methods, and strangely there's no random offset expression method, but I created one which you can use here because it's incredibly useful. And if you look at the distribution here, I've got another script that does distribution. That's going to be a few weeks, a month later. But if you have your shape layer repeaters, you can actually start using that now for your distribution, because you recall you can swap them once you once you bake the repeaters, you can swap those layers, which is what I did here. All right. I use my distributor to create this. So that's one example. This is another example. Okay. So this is 278 layers. Now, let's see what's happening here. So what I normally do is I'll come in. I'll look at what properties are animating. So it's got scale. Yeah, you can see scale and position animating. But there's no stagger. And also, yeah, there's no stagger for position and scale. Nothing's happening with rotation. Opacity is animating. Yeah. Over 2 seconds. Now I'm going to select all layers, and I'm going to move the second keyframe for opacity so that it completes the opacity fade in between 0 to 1 second. So Alt Shift click on opacity, click on move, press 2 because I want to move keyframe indices 2 for opacity, and I'm going to move it. I can do offset or relative time or absolute time, doesn't matter. So it's done. So again, in about 1 second, it moved 256 keyframes across 256 layers. It's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it? Because oftentimes people say After Effects is slow. Really, it's not. There are some parts or certain functionality in After Effects is slow, but as you can see, processing 256 keyframes over 256 layers took 1 second, and I'm running a script. It's not even native. Anyways, let's do this. Ooh. Okay, I want to do stagger, but I'm trying to be wise because I suggest we do it here with this, which has fewer layers first. You know why? Because I'm tired. And I want to get at least this part done, take a break, and come back and do the longer ones with more layers. Okay, now we want to stagger. Stagger is beautiful, but you need to decide what you want to stagger. Oh, we don't need scale for this. Oh, we do. There's scale and there's position. Yep. So I've checked scale and position. Ensured that no custom properties are checked because or selected because I don't want to select those for staggering. Now you got to decide what you want to stagger. All right. Now we're doing the transition in. So you can stagger just the second keyframe or the first and second keyframes, right? Or even just the first keyframes, right? So there alone you've got a few creative options as it is, right? I suggest you experiment and see what you like best. I'm going to do two, so only the second keyframe I'm going to stagger. And you can stagger by these options. So this is like insanely powerful. You need to sit down and think, like, what the heck's happening? What do these things do? Well, layer index, that means the first layer that is first layer's keyframe, which will not move because this is how the stagger works. The first set of layers will not move, right? And then the second set, which has the closest value, will move. And then it will be sequential or in a staggered manner. So normally this is done based on layer index or selection, but I've set it up such that it can also be based on in points, out points, duration. Okay, and just like our AC/DC distribution order, the smaller value, depending on what you select, the smaller value will be the one that gets affected first. All right, so same principles apply here. I'm going to select all. So I'm going to choose XY coordinate. All right. Now, where you place your CGI is exceptionally important. Right. I should have put this up here, you know, because after you pick one of the properties that require the script to do some calculations, you need to specify where in time it has to be done. All right. So for now it's here. The next version it will be up here. All right. Now, step easing. This is another insanely powerful. But I can tell you this, for linear stuff like this, simple stuff, pick the linear option. Some of these other options are more when you're dealing with 100, 200, 300 layers, and you have a more elaborate, more circular kind of distribution. Those may come in handy. Right? Now, step duration, you can choose either frames or seconds. It's the differential between each set of staggered layers and its keyframes. All right? We'll set it to, I'm going to leave it at 5. So, and then you can affect individual layers or the total duration. Total duration means the start and end of all affected layers and the affected keyframes. Okay, again, we'll see. It'll make more sense once we see the result. Okay, you can snap keyframes to frame, or if this is deselected, then certain keyframes may appear in between frame count. So between frames, say 15 and 16, your keyframe may be in between those. Sounds a bit strange if you haven't seen it, but it does happen in some cases like this. And then we've got group same values and threshold. We'll look at that soon also. All right, distribution mode. This is also interesting. Again, experiment for now. For linear stuff, straight lines and stuff, this type of distribution, linear will work best. So I selected XY coordinate, and these are my options. So I'm picking composition center. That means somewhere here, right? Somewhere here is where the script is going to look at to see which layer is closest, and that layer will be animating first, right? And then it will do its distribution based on that. All right, it's time to watch. So I'm gonna up one or just keyframe 2. All right. Wow, when you're doing this, you gotta be mindful that the last keyframe doesn't cross over to the adjacent keyframe, because it's gonna result in unexpected and largely often unwanted results. All right, so let's see what happens. See that? So with staggered, a couple of things I want you to notice. This came first, although they're the same size, and although they're, I think, based on the center, they're quite evenly distanced from the center, but it had to pick only one. All right, it could not pick both, and that's because I did not set group same values. So group same values means some layers are just like point, After Effects is like each pixel is divided into 16,000 parts. So when you do this sort of distribution, this sort of calculations, very, very small difference will create a different set of layers, all right? Or group of layers. But when we switch this on, we're allowed to use a threshold. So I'm going to say 2. So if they have a differential of 2 or less, then they will be set to the same group. So I'm going to undo. One more time. Yeah. So I'm looking at the keyframes here, right? I'm going to undo so that it comes back here. Now again, very careful, because a couple of times I forgot to set my CTI appropriately. Remember, it says use value at time. CTI, in point, out point are the other options. So ensure you put your CTI really, really carefully. If you picked here, scale is 0, right? And not only scale 0, they are actually below here, which is a bit more difficult to calculate. Over here is where I wanted to calculate, right? So now the difference is with checked or enabled group same values, and we've set the threshold of 2. So what it's going to do is going to group these two guys and some of the others. So done. Now I'm going to scrub again. Can you see this? So they go up as a group now. So it's a huge difference what these group same values do. Alright, so that's insanely powerful. Next, we're going to look a little bit more into this. So for that, I'm going to go full screen. So I'm studying which keyframes or which layers keyframes did not move. That means it's the smallest value. Right? So we're going to look at P now, actually. Yeah. So between this keyframe is at 1 second, so this should be 105. And then the next set is 110, because that's our step duration that we set. Alrighty? If you set it to seconds, then it will spread them out based on duration of the first keyframe and the last, which should be here. Right? That's how it's going to calculate the spread. So it's either step duration or actually, yeah, both are steps. It's just whether you're calculating per layer or all layers. Right? So it's either individual steps it calculates, or one giant step. All layers affected. What's the total duration? So normally if you choose seconds, you will be picking total duration. Alrighty? So we've done that. Next, we're gonna do the transition out. Okay. Now, right now, so transition out affects keyframes 3 and 4. So I'm going to change my keyframe indices. I'm going to type 3-4. Alright, 3-4. Not seconds. Well, let's try seconds, but definitely not 5 seconds. Let's try 0.85. And this time we're gonna invert the XY coordinate. Instead of the ones in the middle, closest to the X coordinate, we're gonna pick the furthest one um, to animate first, right? So again, where you put your CDI is super important. So I changed this to seconds. It's 0.85 seconds, and of course I changed the from frames to seconds, and then from individual layers to total duration. And I'm going to leave this selection on. And let's do this. Oh, I didn't select any layers. Alright. Again, I did not select layers, so when you look here, if you click and nothing happened, take a look here. Alright. Tried to stagger, but I staggered 0 keyframes, so something went wrong. And so far, I can say, look, I've tested this for about 3 months. Alright. It's pretty rock solid. But of course, there could be a bug here or there. Don't despair, it's not a disease, it's a bug. Just drop me a note and um, try to get it fixed. Okay, so let's see now. See that? Beautiful, right? Okay, done. You've seen this. Alright, so we look at this. I always want to look at least the keyframes on at least 2 layers when I'm doing staggering, so I can see whether the keyframes have moved. Alright, so we need, yeah, same position scale, but let's decide what we want to do. Alright, we've picked XY coordinate. I think we can leave it there. This has to be changed. This has to be changed to 1 and 2. Like I said, you can affect just one keyframe indices 1. You can offset just that. You get totally different results, yeah? As opposed to staggering keyframe 2 alone, or keyframes 1 and 2, which is what I've set here. Right? In fact, let's do 1 first so we can look at all options. Let's see. Yeah, that was great. Because I did not select any layers, or I only selected one layer. So let's do a Control A. For some reason it's happening. Control Command A. There we go. How many layers do we have? Well, we'll find out. You'll let us know here, right? Under the status. I think this is 200 something layers. Yeah, 252 layers. So it's done the staggering, and it took, I don't know, 5 seconds. Oh, I have a GPU driver problem with After Effects, so it doesn't update. It should update here. It takes a while to update. It's not a script, or it's just a GPU driver problem. So I need to wait a while. I will pause. Oh, I think it worked. Something's wrong with the settings. If you look at my scale, it starts off at 100 and goes to 25%. All right. So, and actually for each of them, the end scale is different, but the starting value is 100. So we need to actually go to attributes. I'm going to Alt Shift on scale. Um, so for scale keyframe 1, it needs to be 0, 0. All right. And I'm going to Alt Shift click on opacity. For keyframe 1, it needs to be 0. Right now it starts at 100, which is strange. Okay, now I think we can preview. See that? Alright. Unfortunately, that stagger kind of sucks. So we need to re-stagger. Yeah, we need to re-stagger. You know why? At 0.85 seconds to stagger 252 layers, um, it's just too quick, so you don't really see the staggering effect. Right? So how do you fix this? Well, I can undo obviously, but I did a few things. I did the scale, the first keyframe, and also for opacity. So I'm going to show you the move option and also the spread operator. Now, if, like I said, if you use JavaScript or if you're comfortable with JavaScript, you will know of the spread operator. What it does is you're telling it, hey, take this first value, which is outside of the spread, um, and all keyframes inside, in between the number here. In this case, it's 2. So what I'm saying is a grab between keyframe 1 and keyframes 2. Alright? And move keyframe 1 to time 0 while keeping all the other keyframes inside at the original relative time difference between each other. So if I had 5 keyframes, I would have typed 5 in here. Whoops. I would have typed 5 in here. Make sure you have the ellipses, yeah, the 3 dots. So if I type something like this, and I had 5 position and scale keyframes for each of the selected layers, what it's going to do is it's going to move keyframe 1 to time 0, and then all the layers will just shift while retaining the time differential between each other. Alright, so all adjacent keyframes after 1 will be moved by the same number of frames as keyframe index 1 is moved to reach this time. It's a mouthful, isn't it? Okay, so I need to change this and click. So on all layers, for their position and scale properties, they will be moved, or keyframe 1 will be moved to 0 time, and all the other keyframes specified within the spread operator will move um, based on the original relative time differences. Okay, you know what? I tell you I have a bit of a ADHD problem. I want to delete all the rotation keyframes. It bothers me seeing it there doing nothing. And also confusing, isn't it? Now, when you're deleting keyframes, it's much like how you delete keyframes in After Effects, where your CTI is at the point in time that you delete is exceptionally crucial, because that's the value that's going to be retained after you delete. So I'm going to come back here. we need to pause because this is my GPU error again. Well, the reason I know it's a GPU driver error is because when I test on my other machine, there isn't this issue. So it's very frustrating. As you can see, I'm trying to preview it, it doesn't want to. Let's switch comms to see. It just needs a kick up its butt. I've got an RTX 4080. Or is it 4090? I think it's 4090. Hey, come on. Ah, there it goes. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, if you have a lot of layers and you try to view all the keyframes, After Effects is gonna run out of space. There is a maximum height, maximum displayable height of your timeline. So be mindful. When that happens, you will not be able to see the layer stamps or some of your layers. I think you will see it now. I'm going to scroll down. See this? The layer stamps have disappeared from view. So from this point onwards, layer stems cannot be seen. So that is an After Effects limitation, right? So based on the number of layers and how much space each layer takes in terms of its height. But okay, it's just a side track. The thing is, alright, so as you can see, the second keyframe across the layers is not consistent. That's why you're seeing this staggering here. The outer layers are appearing first. When what I want is no stagger, set them at a uniform setting, and then I will stagger them separately. So what I'm going to do is select properties, keyframe 2 for both of them, and then move them to the 1 second mark, or maybe 1/15. Yeah, so that for each layer from the center, which is where it's coming from, to their resting place will take 1 second 15 frames. And let's do that. Double check that I've selected all layers. Good. One very important thing. When you're staggering and you've got layers selected, do not enable this. Yeah, viewing of layer handles. So I've got a shortcut, Shift H. The default shortcut is a 3-key shortcut, which is a bit difficult to hold down. So that's one setting you may want to look at. Okay. That's this guy, yeah? That's this command, toggle show layer controls. So again, mine is Shift H. Yeah. Alright, so let's do it. Yep. So move 512 keyframes on 256 layers, because 2 keyframes, one for scale, one for position for each layer. Again, the GPU driver issue, but I think it's done. Okay. Let's go to stagger mode. Let's do 2 seconds or 2.5 seconds. Let's see what we get. Yeah. So I've left everything the same here. I'm only staggering the keyframe 2. Let's go. Done. Yep. Let's go. Alright, the keyframe easing is not good, so I'm going to take a look. Yeah. So I'm going to select all layers and hold shift and click here to get my favorite easing. So you see how quick that was? It was about a second. Yeah, apply BGEMs easing and with the shift modifier using those settings for speed and influence handles. Speed influence handles for going out or easing out and easing in. And that was applied to 1024 keyframes and it took, I don't know, 3-5 seconds. Beautiful, right? So you can do stuff like this in After Effects, not an issue. And once we get the distributor out, it'll be great. Okay. And now I'm going to undo. So we're going to move the second keyframe for position and scale to time 115. Right? And then go back to stagger. This time I want to stagger 1 and 2. And then let's see what the difference is. Okay, it says it's staggered nothing. It's no good. Let's try 1-2. Still nothing. Oh, it's good that I made the mistake. So you'll see, when I staggered, my CDI was here. And what's the problem with that? Well, all their position values, that means when the script calculated their x coordinate value relative to this point, they all had the same value, so nothing was staggered. So ensure your CDI, again I keep repeating this, but I make this mistake often, so hopefully you don't. Yeah, now there will be staggering because when it calculates the value at the point the CDI is at, it will be creating the different groups. All right, and again, you can check the staggering in the timeline amongst the keyframes. You don't have to look at all, right? Like I said initially, you only need to see 2 keyframes from 2 layers to see if there's staggering. And of course, the status is really useful. Okay, let's preview. So that's what it looks like. And then, don't know if you can tell the difference between when it was at 2 alone. Okay, so what we are going to do now is copy and paste keyframes 2 and 1. Now I need the start or the third keyframe to be after all the keyframes have stopped. Well, not necessarily, but it's safer this way. So about here, takes a rest, and let's see at 5:05. Yeah, and we'll make this 1. So I'm doing the same thing as what we did earlier, right? So I'm copying pasting keyframes 2 for each layer, and the script is gonna copy and then paste keyframes to where the CTI is now. So we'll get a new keyframe 3, and then our first keyframe, this guy, is gonna be copied and then pasted at CTI plus 2 seconds. Alright, so Control A or Command A, select all the layers, and let's do our copy paste. Now, although the keyframes 1 and 2 are staggered, keyframes 3 and 4 is uniform across all layers. Alright? So no staggering there. And we're going to go to stagger, and this time will be 3 and 4. Alright? Yeah, and I'm going to make it a bit longer this time, so maybe 3.25 seconds for the staggering out. And if I ungroup, or if I deselect the grouping values, maybe a bit more interesting. And now, instead of the outside, remember we're still measuring the same stuff, yeah? Which is the XY coordinate. You can of course change it, yeah? You can do a random if you want. Okay, there's another option. I'm going to leave it there. But I want it to start from the center. So I'm going to uncheck the invert. Oops, I need to undo, select all layers. Okay, so that took about 10 seconds. Alright, took about 10 seconds. I can scroll down, look at the keyframes there. Okay, so let's look at the preview. Okay, the easing kind of sucks, so we're going to Command Shift click, and that should be fine. Now next, I want to set them to a line, a horizontal line. But first I need them to go to the center. So I'm going to create a new keyframe. So indices 5, time at CTI, values. Actually, they're already at 0, 0, I think. Yeah, they're already at 0, 0, their default value. So I want to spread them out. So I have a special command. Again, a special command is like an expression method. So for position, it needs X and Y. I'm gonna say minus 500 for X. For Y, no. So for random offset, you need two values here. The minimum and the maximum. Since I don't want it to move up or down, I just want it to move left and right, I'm affecting the random offset along the X. Alright, so I'm not affecting scale. Yeah, we only want to affect position. Let's see. But scale is 0. Damn it. So we need to fix that. But let's do position first. Okay. So, and let's do scale. Alt Shift scale. I'm gonna select this and Control X. So scale can I do this? You know what? I don't even know if this works. So scale. So where should I paste this? So I'm saying at scale, the last keyframe plus 1 second. Alright. Let's see if this works. So copy, pasting. Let's see. Oh, next time when you want, when you're doing it on your own and you want to test something, you know, unique like this, best to select maybe 4 or 5 layers instead of 252 layers. So it seems to have worked. And you can see they're set up here now, they're spread out. Come back to attributes. Whoops. Actually, I think it looks fine. You know, I think it looks fine. Yeah, I think it looks fine. So it's staying there. And then now we're going to animate from this to this. So, I'm going to see all the keyframes because at the 15-second mark, which is roughly where my CTI is, I want it to go to that shape. So I'm going to say copy paste keyframe 2 to CTI. And for this, I need position. I actually don't need scale because I already have it. So let's switch that off. So understand what I'm saying? So we're here now, right? And from here right up to the 15-second mark, whoops, we're going to grab the second keyframe, which will mean we'll be in that shape. What's happening? Okay, that may be a bug. Why is it asking about random offset? Well, when copy paste. So let's delete that. Now that's a bug. And what happened then was I had the random offset here, but it wasn't written properly. So for some reason the script was trying to read it. Okay, let's see. That was pretty nice, right? And as you can see, there is no stagger. So what I'm going to do is between this keyframe, which is keyframes 5 and 6 for position, I'm going to stagger on X and Y coordinate, but I'm going to input a custom top center. Well, let's go for that. Top center would be somewhere here. Because what I want is going from here to here, I want the top layers to assemble first. Should be 6 and 7. Oh no, 5 and 6. What the hell am I doing? 5, 6. XY coordinate, composition top center. Yeah. Beautiful, right? Didn't take too long. Lovely. And now, just to show you how to, well, most of you should know, but just in case, I'm gonna add wiggle to opacity, copy it, um, sorry, copy keyframe, sorry, copy expressions only, yeah, Alt C for me, for my shortcut. Now this thing that I've done where it staggers and then sets up from the top, you could of course do it and then set it up or assemble the radial shape um, from the left, right? Or from the bottom. There's so many options. So this is going to earn you a lot of money, I hope. Um, you know, send me a crate of beer or something. Excuse me. So this was really challenging to develop, and you know what? I'm not done yet. So this is version 1. It's going to get better. Um, so hopefully there'll be a version 2. So I need you guys, if you like this, tell your friends to buy it. Um, if it's worthwhile to develop version 2 or to add on to this, obviously I'll do it. You know, sometimes you do things for fun, sometimes for money, sometimes for both. So I've got tons of things to do. This was fun, challenging to do, and if it's worthwhile to do more, I'll do version 2. Okay, that's it for now. Hope you like it. If you don't like it, sorry that you purchased it, but you can drop a line. Let me know what the issue is, and try to sort it out. All right, cheers. Bye bye.